Hey, my name is Marcus. I'm 29 years old, and at this moment, I'm standing on the porch of my grandfather's old farmhouse in rural Tennessee, watching a woman I barely know unpack her entire life from a weathered Honda Civic. 3 days ago, I didn't even know her name. Now, she's about to become part of mine in ways I can't yet comprehend. My life before this moment was simple, maybe too simple. I wake up at 5:30 every morning to the sound of roosters that belong to my neighbor, Mrs. Hendricks. I make instant coffee in the same chipped mug my grandfather used for 40 years, standing at the kitchen window that overlooks 60 acres of land I inherited but never really wanted. By 6:15, I'm in my truck heading to the construction site in town, where I work as a foreman for Davidson Brothers Construction. It's honest work, pays decent, and keeps my hands busy enough that I don't think too much about the emptiness waiting for me at home. The farmhouse sits at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by fields that used to grow tobacco but now just grow wild with Queen Anne's lace and tall grass that whispers in the wind. It's a 2-story white clapboard house with green shutters, a wraparound porch that creaks with every step, and rooms that echo because I never bothered to fill them with much beyond the basics. A couch from a yard sale. A bed that belonged to my grandfather. A kitchen table where I eat alone, scrolling through my phone, pretending the silence doesn't bother me. I've been living here for 5 years, ever since Grandpa Joe passed and left me everything. The house, the land, and a metal lockbox I found in his closet containing old letters, property deeds, and a leather-bound ledger filled with names and numbers written in his careful handwriting. At first, I thought it was just records of crops sold or equipment bought. Then I realized what it actually was. A list of debts. Money my grandfather had loaned to neighbors over the years. Small amounts mostly. $500 to help the Crowley family after their barn burned down. $1,000 to help someone pay medical bills. $2,000 to a man named Richard Chin to help start his restaurant in town. Most of the debts were marked paid or forgiven in red ink. But 3 remained open, including one that caught my attention. Chen family $15,000, business loan 1998. I'd done nothing about it. What was I supposed to do? Show up at strangers' doors demanding money from decades ago? It felt wrong, like collecting on kindness. So, the ledger sat in my desk drawer, forgotten, until 3 nights ago when my dogs started barking at 8:47 p.m. I don't get visitors. The farmhouse is too far off the main road, too isolated for casual drop-ins. So, when headlights swept across my living room wall, I stood up from the couch, muted the TV, and walked to the front door. Through the screen, I could see a small sedan idling in my driveway, headlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating the moths that swirled in the beams. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with long black hair pulled into a ponytail and an oversized jacket that looked like it belonged to someone else. She stood there for a moment, staring at the house like she was gathering courage. Then she started walking toward the porch, her footsteps crunching on gravel. I pushed open the screen door before she could knock. "Can I help you?" She stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, looking up at me. Her face was pale in the porch light, eyes tired but determined. "Are you Marcus Webb?" "Yeah." "Who's asking?" She took a deep breath. "My name is Lily Chin. I'm here about a debt my family owes yours." The name hit me immediately. I remembered the ledger entry. $15,000. "You didn't have to come all the way out here," I said carefully. "I wasn't planning on collecting." "I know," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor I could see in her hands. "But I need to. My grandfather took that loan from yours in 1998 to open his restaurant. He always meant to pay it back, but things got complicated. He passed away 2 years ago, and when we were going through his things, we found the original loan agreement. It's been weighing on my family ever since." I didn't know what to say. The idea that this woman had tracked me down, driven out to the middle of nowhere, to settle a 26-year-old debt felt surreal. "Come inside," I said finally. "It's too cold to talk out here." She hesitated, then nodded, climbing the porch steps slowly. I held the door open, and she walked into my living room, taking in the sparse furniture, the bare walls, the sense of a house that was occupied but not really lived in. "Want some coffee?" I asked. It's instant, but it's hot. Sure. Thank you. I went to the kitchen, filled the kettle, and grabbed 2 mugs while she stood awkwardly near the couch. When I returned with the coffee, she'd sat down on the edge of the cushion, her jacket still on, hands wrapped around the mug like she needed the warmth. So, I said, sitting in the armchair across from her, tell me about this debt. Lily took a sip of coffee, gathering her thoughts. My grandfather, Richard Chin, came to America from Taiwan in 1995 with almost nothing. He had a dream of opening an authentic Taiwanese restaurant, but no bank would loan him money. He didn't have credit, didn't have collateral. Your grandfather knew him somehow. I'm not sure how they met, but Joe Webb believed in him when no one else would. Her eyes met mine, and I saw gratitude there, mixed with something else. Maybe. Or determination. He gave my grandfather $15,000 with a handshake agreement. No contracts, no interest. Just trust. The restaurant, Chen's Kitchen, opened in 1999. For a few years, it did okay. My grandfather made payments when he could, but then my grandmother got sick. Medical bills piled up. The restaurant struggled. He stopped being able to pay. She paused, her voice dropping. Your grandfather never asked for the money. Never pressured him. And my grandfather carried that guilt until the day he died. He made my father promise to pay it back someday. And my father made me promise before he passed last year from cancer. The room felt heavier suddenly. This wasn't just about money. It was about honor, about promises made between generations. I'm sorry for your losses, I said quietly. Thank you. She set her mug down on the coffee table. I have $5,000 saved. It's not the full amount, but it's a start. I can pay you installments, monthly, until it's cleared. I have a payment plan written out. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket pocket, carefully smoothed it out, and held it toward me. I took it, scanning the neat columns of numbers. She'd calculated everything down to the cent, projecting it would take her 3 years to pay off the remaining $10,000 in $200 monthly increments. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, clothes that had seen better days, the kind of weariness that comes from carrying weight that isn't entirely yours. And yet, there was strength in the set of her jaw, dignity in the way she held herself. Lily, I said slowly, folding the paper, this debt was between our grandfathers. It's been 26 years. I'm not going to hold you to this. Her eyes widened. What? I'm forgiving it. The whole thing. You don't owe me anything. She stood abruptly, shaking her head. No, I can't accept that. This is a matter of honor. My family's honor. Sit down, I said gently. Please. Reluctantly, she sat, but her posture remained rigid, defensive. My grandfather made that loan because he believed in yours, I continued. He didn't do it to create a burden for the next generation. He did it to help someone achieve a dream. If I collect this debt, I'm undoing what he intended. I'm making his kindness transactional. But, let me finish. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. You drove all the way out here with $5,000 cash and a 3-year payment plan to honor your grandfather's promise. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. The debt is forgiven. Consider it done. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling over before she could stop them. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. I sat there, unsure what to do, feeling awkward and helpless in the face of her relief. When she finally looked up, wiping her eyes with her sleeve, she laughed, a broken, wet sound. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall apart. You've been carrying this for a long time, I said softly. 2 years. Ever since my grandfather died. It's been like a weight on my chest. She took a shaky breath. Thank you, Marcus. Truly. This means more than you know. We sat in silence for a moment. The house settled around us with its familiar creaks and groans. Outside, an owl hooted in the distance. Where are you staying tonight? I asked suddenly. She blinked. There's a motel about 20 miles back. I passed it on the way here. That's the Sunset Inn. It's not great. Bedbugs, probably. She shrugged. It's fine. I'm used to worse. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe it was the loneliness I'd been living with for 5 years. Maybe it was the way she looked, small and exhausted in my oversized living room. Maybe it was just the knowledge that she'd come all this way for honor, and I wanted to honor that somehow. "The guest room upstairs is empty," I said. "You're welcome to stay the night. Leave in the morning when you're rested." Lily froze, staring at me like I just suggested something outrageous. I couldn't possibly. "It's late. You've had an emotional night. The room's clean. There's a lock on the door if it makes you feel safer." I stood up. No strings attached. Just a place to sleep. She studied me carefully, weighing the offer, looking for ulterior motives. I met her gaze steadily, hoping she'd see I meant it sincerely. Finally, she nodded. "Just for tonight." "Thank you." I showed her upstairs to the guest room, a simple space with a double bed, a dresser, and a window that overlooked the back fields. I'd put clean sheets on it months ago, more out of habit than expectation of visitors. "Bathrooms across the hall," I said. "Towels are in the closet. If you need anything, I'm downstairs." "This is more than enough. Thank you, Marcus." I nodded and left, closing the door behind me. Back downstairs, I sat on the porch in my grandfather's old rocking chair, listening to the cicadas sing in the darkness. The air smelled like honeysuckle and distant rain. I thought about my grandfather, about the kind of man who would loan $15,000 on a handshake, about legacy and kindness and the strange way life brings people together. I didn't sleep much that night. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps upstairs, the creak of floorboards, the sound of the bathroom door closing. At 5:30, I made coffee, expecting Lily to appear any moment, ready to leave and return to whatever life she'd paused to come here. But when 6 a.m. came, then 7, then 8, she still hadn't come downstairs. I started to worry. Knocked gently on her door around 8:30. "Lily? You okay?" A muffled sound, then movement. The door opened a crack. She looked terrible. Pale, sweating, eyes glassy. "I think I have a fever," she said weakly. "I'm sorry. I'll leave soon. Just need a minute." I pushed the door open gently, pressing the back of my hand to her forehead. She was burning up. "You're not going anywhere," I said firmly. "Get back in bed." She didn't argue, which told me how sick she really was. I helped her back to the bed, pulled the covers up, and went downstairs to find the thermometer and medicine cabinet. 102.3 degrees. Not dangerous yet, but not good either. For the next 2 days, I called in sick to work and took care of her. Brought her water, soup, fever reducers. Changed the sheets when they got soaked with sweat. Sat in the chair by the window reading while she slept, just in case she needed something. She protested weakly at first. "You don't have to do this. I'll be fine." "I know I don't have to," I replied, adjusting her pillows. "But I'm going to anyway." On the 3rd day, her fever broke. I came upstairs with breakfast to find her sitting up, looking exhausted but clearer-eyed. "How are you feeling?" I asked, setting the tray on her lap. "Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice." "Better. Weak but better." She looked at the food, then at me. "Marcus, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to. Just eat." She picked at the eggs, taking small bites. "You barely know me, yet you've opened your home, forgiven my family's debt, and taken care of me like—" She trailed off. "Like what?" "Like I matter," she finished softly. Something in my chest tightened. "You do matter." Her eyes met mine, and in that moment, something shifted. The air felt different, charged with possibility. Over the next week, Lily recovered fully. But she didn't leave. At first, it was practical. She'd used her savings for the trip, didn't have enough gas money to get back to California where she'd been living. I offered to lend her money, but she refused, insisting she'd find work in town and earn it herself. She got a job at Chen's Kitchen, which had stayed open after her grandfather's death, now run by a distant cousin. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. She'd come to settle a debt, and now she was working at the business that debt had created. In the evenings, she'd come back to the farmhouse. At first, she'd go straight to her room, keeping distance between us. But gradually, she started lingering. helping with dinner, sitting on the porch with me, watching the sun set over the fields. "Why do you live out here all alone?" she asked one evening, her voice curious, not judgmental. I took a sip of sweet tea, considering the question. After my grandfather died, I couldn't bring myself to sell the place. It's been in our family for 3 generations. But I also couldn't figure out what to do with it. So I just existed here. Went through the motions. "That's lonely." "Yeah," I admitted. "It is." She was quiet for a moment. "I've been lonely too. After my father died, I didn't have much family left. I was living in a studio apartment in Los Angeles, working 2 jobs, barely scraping by. No friends, no real connections. When I found that loan agreement, it gave me purpose. Something to focus on besides just surviving." "And now?" I asked. She looked at me, a small smile playing at her lips. "Now I'm not sure what comes next." "You could stay," I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. "I mean, until you figure things out. The house is too big for one person anyway." Lily tilted her head, studying me. "Is that what you want?" I met her gaze directly. "Yeah, I think it is." She didn't answer immediately, just turned back to watch the sunset, but I noticed she moved her chair slightly closer to mine. The weeks turned into a month. Lily settled into a routine. She'd work the lunch shift at Chen's kitchen, come home in the afternoons, and we'd spend evenings together. She started cooking dinner, proper meals instead of the frozen pizzas and canned soup I'd been living on. The house began to smell like ginger, garlic, soy sauce, and something else I couldn't name. Something like home. She brought life into the empty rooms. Bought flowers from the farmer's market and put them in mason jars on the kitchen table. Opened windows I'd kept closed for years, letting fresh air chase out the staleness. Reorganized my chaotic pantry with a precision that would have annoyed me from anyone else, but from her felt like care. I found myself looking forward to coming home from work. The sight of her car in the driveway made my chest feel lighter. The sound of her humming in the kitchen while she cooked made the house feel less like a mausoleum and more like a place worth living in. But we maintained careful distance. She slept upstairs. I slept down. We didn't talk about what this was, this undefined thing growing between us. We were too cautious, too afraid of ruining whatever fragile connection we'd built. Then came the storm. It was mid-October, unseasonably warm, when the sky turned a sickly green and the weather service issued a tornado warning. I was at work when my phone started screaming with alerts. I called Lily immediately. "Get to the basement," I said, not bothering with hello. "Now." "Marcus, I don't know where." "Kitchen, door next to the refrigerator. Go down the stairs. There's a flashlight on the shelf. Stay there until I get home." "Okay." Her voice was small, scared. "Hurry." I left the job site, driving faster than I should have through sheets of rain that turned the road into a gray blur. The wind battered my truck, pushing it sideways. Tree branches littered the highway. By the time I pulled into the driveway, hail was falling, chunks of ice the size of golf balls denting my hood. I ran for the house, yanked open the kitchen door, and nearly fell down the basement stairs in my rush. "Lily!" "Here." Her voice came from the corner. I found her huddled under my grandfather's old workbench, the flashlight clutched in her hands, eyes wide with fear. The tornado sirens wailed outside, a sound like the end of the world. I crawled under the workbench with her, pulling her against me as the house began to shake. The roar was deafening, like a freight train parked directly overhead. I felt her fingers dig into my shirt, her face pressed against my chest, and I wrapped my arms around her, trying to shield her from whatever was coming. It lasted maybe 3 minutes. Maybe 30. Time lost all meaning in the darkness and noise. When the roaring finally stopped, we stayed frozen, waiting to see if it would come back. Slowly, I became aware of her heartbeat against mine. The way she fit perfectly in my arms. The smell of her hair, like jasmine and rain. "Lily," I whispered. "You okay?" She nodded against my chest but didn't pull away. I was so scared. "Me too." She lifted her head, and in the dim light of the flashlight lying beside us, I saw her face. Tear-streaked, beautiful, alive. Our eyes met, and everything I'd been holding back for weeks came rushing to the surface. "I'm glad you're here," I said, my voice rough. "I'm glad you came to settle that debt. I'm glad you got sick and stayed. I'm glad for all of it because it brought you here." Her breath caught. "Marcus, I know it's complicated. I know we barely know each other. But I need you to know that you matter to me. More than I thought possible in such a short time." Lily's hand came up to touch my face, her fingers gentle against my jaw. "You matter to me too. So much it scares me." I leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Our lips met softly, tentatively, a question and an answer all at once. She tasted like salt from her tears and something sweet I couldn't name. The kiss deepened, weeks of unspoken longing pouring out between us. When we finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. "What are we doing?" she whispered. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I don't want to stop." "Me neither." We climbed out of the basement to find the house mostly intact. A few shingles missing, a broken window in the living room, tree branches scattered across the porch. But standing, the fields around us looked like a war zone, with a clear path where the tornado had touched down about half a mile away. That night, after we'd cleaned up the glass and boarded the window, we sat on the couch together. Not on opposite ends like before, but close, my arm around her shoulders, her head on my chest. "I came here to settle a debt," she said quietly. "But I think I found something more valuable." "What's that?" "A reason to stay." I tightened my arm around her. "Then stay. Not as a guest. Not as someone passing through. Stay because you want it. Because this is home." She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't have much to offer. I'm broke, working a restaurant job, living in someone else's house." "Our house?" I interrupted. "If you stay, it's our house. And you offer plenty. You've brought life back to this place. To me." She tilted her head up to look at me. "You really mean that?" "Every word." She smiled, and it was like watching the sun come out. "I'll stay." The next few months were the happiest of my life. Lily moved her things from the guest room downstairs, into mine. We fell into a rhythm that felt natural, easy. She'd wake up early with me, make coffee while I showered, kiss me goodbye at the door when I left for work. I'd come home to find her working in the garden she'd started, dirt under her fingernails, hair tied back, looking more beautiful than anyone had a right to. We painted the living room together, arguing good-naturedly about colors. She wanted warm yellow. I thought white was fine. We compromised on a soft cream that made the room feel bigger, brighter. We fixed the porch railing that had been loose for years. We adopted a dog from the shelter, a mutt named Biscuit who followed Lily everywhere. Chen's Kitchen promoted her to assistant manager. She started working on expanding the menu, adding dishes her grandfather used to make. Business picked up. She'd come home excited, telling me about regular customers who'd become friends, about her ideas for the future. But not everything was perfect. Lily's past had left scars that weren't visible. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night to find her side of the bed empty. I'd find her on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the darkness. "Can't sleep?" I'd ask, sitting beside her. "Just thinking about my dad. My grandfather. Wishing they could see this. See us." I'd put my arm around her, pulling her close. "I think they can. And I think they're proud." She'd lean into me, and we'd sit there in the darkness, finding comfort in each other's presence. There were moments of doubt too. Times when the weight of our different backgrounds felt heavy. She'd grown up in a city, surrounded by noise and people. I'd grown up here, where the nearest neighbor was a mile away. She loved going to concerts, trying new restaurants, being surrounded by energy. I loved quiet, routine, the predictability of rural life. "Do you ever miss California?" I asked one evening as we cooked dinner together. She paused, knife hovering over the cutting board. "Sometimes. I miss the ocean. The diversity. The energy." My chest tightened. "Do you think you'll go back?" She set the knife down and turned to me. "Marcus, I left California because there was nothing there for me anymore. Everything that mattered was gone. But here," she gestured around the kitchen, "here I found something worth staying for. I've found you. You're sure? She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around my waist. I'm sure. This is home now. You're home. Relief flooded through me. I kissed her forehead, holding her tight. But because I don't want to do this without you. 6 months after she first knocked on my door, I took Lily back to the porch where it all started. It was early evening, golden hour, the kind of light that makes everything look softer, more beautiful. I'd been planning this for weeks, second-guessing myself constantly, but I knew it was right. Sit with me, I said, gesturing to the rocking chairs. She sat, curious. What's going on? You're being weird. I laughed nervously, reaching into my pocket. I've been thinking a lot about debts lately. About what we owe each other, and what we choose to give freely. Marcus, let me finish. I pulled out a small box, and her eyes went wide. When you came here to settle your family's debt, I never imagined it would change my life. But you did. You took this empty house and filled it with warmth. You took my lonely existence and made it worth living. You gave me purpose, joy, and a future I actually want. I opened the box, revealing my grandmother's ring. Simple, elegant, a single diamond on a gold band. I don't want to collect debts from you, Lily. I want to build a life with you. I want to fill this house with our story, our family, our love. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling, radiant. Yes, Marcus, of course yes. I slipped the ring on her finger, and she threw her arms around me, laughing and crying at the same time. We held each other as the sun set over the fields, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the cicadas beginning their evening song. I came here to settle a debt, she whispered against my ear. But instead, I found everything I didn't know I was looking for. Me too, I said, pulling back to look at her face. Me too. We got married 3 months later in the backyard, surrounded by wildflowers Lily had planted. Mrs. Hendricks from next door came, along with half the town and the entire staff from Chen's kitchen. My construction crew showed up in their best clothes, looking uncomfortable but happy. It was small, intimate, perfect. As I watched Lily walk toward me in a simple white dress, her hair loose and wild in the breeze, I thought about my grandfather's ledger. About the $15,000 loan that had brought her to my door. About how kindness ripples through time, creating connections across generations. That loan had been an investment, I realized. Not in a restaurant, but in something bigger. In honor, in integrity, in the belief that helping someone achieve their dreams is always worthwhile. My grandfather had given Richard Chen a chance at a better life. And in return, decades later, Richard's granddaughter had given me mine. Now, sitting here on the porch on a cool autumn evening, watching Lily rock gently beside me as she knits something small and yellow, her belly round with our first child, I understand what my grandfather was really teaching me through that ledger. Debts aren't always about money. Sometimes they're about showing up. About choosing to stay when you could leave. About opening your home and your heart to someone who needs it. About building something together that's worth more than any amount in a bank account. Lily looks up and catches me staring. What? She asks, smiling. Just thinking about how lucky I am. She reaches over and takes my hand. We both are. The sun dips below the horizon, and in the distance, I hear Biscuit barking at something in the fields. The house behind us glows with warm light from the windows. Inside, I know there's a pot roast in the oven, vegetables from our garden on the counter, and a home that finally feels complete. Marcus, Lily says softly. Thank you. For what? For telling me to stay. For seeing something in me worth keeping. For giving me a home. I squeeze her hand gently. You gave me one first. We sit in comfortable silence as darkness falls, two people who found each other through the most unlikely circumstances. A debt that became a gift. A stranger who became family. An empty house that became a home. And I think about anyone who might be listening to our story, wondering if their own moment of connection is just around the corner. Maybe you're lonely like I was. Maybe you're carrying a burden like Lily did. Maybe you're just waiting for something real, something worth fighting for. If you are, I want you to know, it's out there. Sometimes it shows up on your doorstep at 8:47 at night. Sometimes it comes disguised as obligation, only to transform into joy. Sometimes the best things in life come from simply opening your door and saying, "Would you like to stay?" So, if our story touched you, if it gave you hope or made you think about the debts we owe and the gifts we give, drop a comment below and tell us your story. And hit subscribe, because here on the Porch Diaries, we believe every story of real connection is worth telling. We'll be here, rocking on the porch, waiting to hear yours.